Hey guys, here we go. Excited to talk today. Our chat today is going to be cool. We're going to be talking about the oral microbiome and its connection to the gut, so the oral gut access, which is something that we haven't really spent a lot of time on, but there's more and more experts and research out there really supporting the connection between this. There's a lot of talk about gut microbiome, obviously. There's gut brain access. There's all these different, there's this access and that microbiome and this whatever. And the oral one is really interesting, and some of the stuff that I've seen has sort of highlighted it for me as well. So we have that on the docket today, and then we're actually going to talk about a new service offering that our guest also has, which I think could be helpful for a lot of people. So today we have Dr. Haroldo Magariños, maybe. He's going to tell me if I got it right, and He's the founder of DetoxU, and in a previous life, biological dentist and someone who really understands this world of it as well. And thought it was a really cool chance to have a conversation. So, Harold, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah. Thank you. How close was I on your name? How close was I?
You were almost there.
Almost
you did great. You did great. No, it's tricky. That age confuses everyone, but in Spanish it's silent. So the pronunciation in Spanish, it's Haroldo. It starts with the A, like a very strong A, and the H, it's wiped out of the equation. But that's a confusing piece. It was confusing back in my country, so it doesn't matter. It's fun.
It's so funny. Well, listen, anyone listening, if you ever see a name that looks like Haroldo, it's no H, it's a hard A. It's Haroldo. Yep. There you go. Yep. Now we got it. Everyone say it in your car. Haroldo. Good. Okay. Well, cool. I want to jump in and really just have you kind of talk about your background, because it's interesting, and then sort of how that's migrated into what you're doing now, and we can kind of wrap on that component of it. But there's a few areas we want to touch on. One, oral microbiome, which we talked about, and then just generally just kind of like modern chronic illness and sort of its connection to microbiome imbalances. And I think that's like a huge driver that a lot of people are starting to understand more. And so let's start there. So tell us, how did you get here?
By plane. Sorry, I'm gonna
by plane.
I ended up in the United States after traveling back and forth for many years. I am a dentist. I'm formerly trained dentist. My background is in periodontal disease and surgery. I did that for 12 plus years, if not more. I'm also was teaching and a few universities back in my home country. So I'm academic by nature. I love to teach. That's in my heart since day one. Actually, my first job was as a teacher, but even before being a clinical dentist. But the realization of how things were affecting people's lives in terms of chronic illness, and start seeing the connection, because periodontal disease, it is a chronic illness by definition, and it's by default a curable disease. So in any textbook that you get on your specialization program, they will tell you this is something you need to cope with, something you need to just reduce the damage, maybe try to reduce the progression to a certain extent, but you're not going to cure it. There's no solution. And so I used everything under the sky, antibiotics, surgery, root planning, and everything you can imagine for trying to diminish the progression. But one thing was bothering me all the time. Why, if we're doing all these quote unquote root cause interventions based on the current literature, why I'm not healing this person? Why is always coming back with this situation aggravated and I have to treat it once more? It didn't make sense. It was defying my logic. And I'm really
when was the most recent literature like published that you were looking at where you're like, this doesn't seem to be up to date? Like what was the time span?
Well, unfortunately, we have these very like these golden books that they're still used from some authors like Lindy and Sokransky. They define the whole periodontal disease as a certain model, that is microbial related, but they all agree, there's consensus in that there's no real treatment that will heal this forget. That's the model, and that still applies until today. So we have more tools in the toolbox, but not necessarily something that tells us how to fix this forget.
Do you
But
agree with that now, or have you found different?
absolutely, I don't
Yeah.
agree. And
Yeah.
actually, I think I have a good hypothesis why things are happening on that side and how to correct. It's again, it's a multifactorial systemic approach that needs to be done in order to fix any oral disease beyond the
Mhm.
mouth. But the problem is that when you go to dental school, they trick you from here up. You don't have the chance of touching anything below the neck. So you acknowledge that the person has diabetes or has some other metabolic disorders, and they're under treatment with certain pharmaceuticals, but they're not allowing you to intervene at that level or even connect the dots at that level. So your thinking is very narrow-sighted. That's concerning from a
Yeah.
integrative, holistic approach. Definitely doesn't align with any of those principles, and that's why the model replicates over and over. Treat this locally, drills, plan whatever you need to do, like keep things, the surface even and smooth, and take any cavities out and put some plasticizer, like some ceramic material on the top, and you're gonna be happy. That's it. But not really thinking beyond that why this is occurring in the mouth space, which is just a reflection of the rest of the body. This is the entry gate for the rest of the body, and this is the second most diverse microbiome. And it triggers a lot of reactions internally in the gut microbiome and relates heavily to the immunological reactions, immunological responses we have on a daily basis. But to back to the story about this, I ended up meeting a great biological dentist, Mark Berkowitz, and he introduced me to his world of biological dentistry. He introduced me to other people like Phil Mollica, and both of them, they guided me into the biological dentistry, naturopathic medicine world. To well, which was at the end of the day, the reason why I moved and for good, and I wanted to pursue finding these answers that I saw that were possible to be answered by natural medicine and not with the conventional approach. And down the road, went through a lot of training, a lot of collaboration, a lot of lectures, and I ended up building with two good friends of mine, and we ended up building DetoxU because the combination of my approach to the microbiome, it ended up with understanding that the environmental pollutants are directly affecting the balance of the microbiome and creating a ripple effect in the mouth microbiome and everything else inside the body. And if we remove that factor and we reduce the toxicity burden in modern populations, we are giving a fighting chance for your body, your microbiome, your cells to perform more optimally. And that addresses really the root cause of all these things: oral related, gut related, everything that you can think about in terms of chronic illness is related to that terrain balance.
So, are you saying that the mouth is more of a reflection of what's going on in other areas of the body, as opposed to like the mouth is this root cause that no one knew about before versus, as compared to like the gut or something like that? Or that if you have an issue, it manifests in different microbiomes in your body and you see it in different places. And if you understand that, then you're able to attack things in the most effective way.
Yes, it's both actually. They're not. It's a bidirectional approach. Actually, what if you don't mind me, I can jump in that journey right away.
Yeah.
Uh, when you look at the mouth and you see the imbalances in the mouth, they're typically aligned with something that we see commonly in dentistry, and every dentist will probably agree with this. They see destruction. They see a destruction of the tissues, regardless of those tissues being calcified tissues like dentin or enamel, or periodontal related tissues that could be ligament, bone, gums. They're destroyed, and we start losing them. So we see these big holes in the tooth structure, or we see that diminish in the height and the width of the periodontal structures. But it is an alteration derived from destruction. Why we're destroying those structures doesn't make sense. Why would that happen? Um, in the gut, the microbiome, when there's no food available, will go after the mucin 2 layer. We'll go after this mucosal layer that we have surrounding the gut epithelium. And it goes after that because that mucin layer is rich in proteoglycans. It's a very good food source for most of the microbiome. But they don't go after that typically, except for a few exceptions like Microbial and Phila. They don't go after that typically unless they don't have their primary food source, which could be carbohydrate related or protein fat related, depending on the type of microbe. And some
Okay.
they can eat different ones.
Okay.
When we are starting the gut microbiome, we are getting these microbes to find different food sources. In the mouth, same thing happens. But in your mouth, you don't have that thick mucin layer, but you do have some organic matter below the enamel or inside the sulcus of the periodontal tissues. And that's where these microbes are going to try to find foods. So what they do when they don't get fed properly is trying to drill holes and or go deeper in those sulcus, in those sockets, so they can find the foods that are supposed to be available in the surface. For that purpose, they change their structure so they become more anaerobic. And every textbook in periodontal disease will tell you that they find in the sockets more anaerobic, more gram-negative types of bacteria. Actually, that's described widely. And the reason is because these bacteria, they need to change their ways, their breathing patterns, in order to get there, deeper in those tissues. Same with cavities. They don't have so much oxygen below the surface. So they need to change their respiratory cycles in order to get there and find those foods. But here's the interesting part. Why they're not getting food in the mouth cavity?
Yep.
Because they get fed by the reabsorption of nutrients that comes from the management of foods in the intestinal tract. You reabsorb foods from the gut and send them over back to the salivary glands by something called the enterosalivary circuit. And only then you bathe your microbes with foods that are going to feed them. But if that doesn't happen, then you create starvation and you force those microbes to change and find alternative food sources. When we blame sugar for the tooth decay, we're just blaming poor dietary choices. And those are not going to feed your mouth microbiome because there's no nutrient that you can bring back to the salivary glands from those type of foods, if we can call them foods. But when you see people that are either not eating properly, not eating a good, diverse, healthy diet, or people who have no abilities or less abilities to break down nutrients because they're not able to perform at the stomach acid production level or bile or enzymatic pathways, etc., and they can't break down those foods, then also you create a problem. And now I will tell you the last part. The major aggravating agent for downregulating the performance of those organs is coming from toxins.
Right. Because the toxins will then reduce your nutrient absorption and a lot of the other things are going on. That makes sense. So this is really interesting. So couple follow-ups off of what you're saying. So the way I'm putting it together in my head is that you would see gut issues before you would see mouth issues, because the gut not having what it needs, but then being the first place that could sort of replenish itself, like you start seeing issues there, and then it would like expand to the mouth. Does that sound in theory right?
Yes. I mean, there's some local things that can also affect the mouth directly.
Mhm.
Mercury fillings, fluoride, for example, of course, they will create a ripple effect, but that starts in the mouth. Um, Lack of chewing in general, you need to
Yeah.
chew your foods, and not, if not, you're not stimulating the rest of your digestive tract. And imbalances in the mouth microbiome also related to overusage of antimicrobials, which is so common because that's pretty much forced by every dentist you go and visit. It will tell you, use this mouthwash, use this toothpaste, and all of them are loaded with chemicals. That also deprives the body from a very important signaling pathway, because you open your mouth and you get things from the outside, and they're read by your mouth microbiome. And then we swallow bacteria. Actually, we swallow tons of them, 140 billion of them every day. It's only
Mhm.
our saliva we bring into our digestive tract. Now you're bringing this saliva with tons, billions of microbes, and they're telling a story to your gut microbiome. And now your gut microbiome grabs these pieces of genes and starts learning from what's going on outside, and induces your immune system to respond in one way or the other. So a healthy mouth microbiome has a profound implication in the functionality of your immune system.
So does that mean, if you this is kind of going to my next question, but like, one, can you directly feed your oral microbiome what it needs without it coming from its gut? More think like supplementation or something, like, can you supplement straight in your mouth?
Yeah.
And then follow up off of that, would doing that, now that we're talking about the relationship from mouth to gut, would that now start signaling the gut that things are better, let's say, and start like reversing back some of the bad habits that is learned?
It is hard to feed directly your mouth microbiome because the time frame that you have those foods available for your bacteria to grab those nutrients and use them properly is very short.
Mhm.
It's not very predictable. And there's some evidence that we see, for example, when we look at the nitric oxide pathways and this alternative pathways, and we get nitrates in our foods. That if you chew foods that are rich in nitrates, we have some prebiotic effect on nitrate reducing bacteria in the mouth, which explains, in, at least partially, that we do have some potential of using foods as a substrate, as a prebiotic, directly. But the most amount of nutrients is actually coming after foods are managed in your GI tract.
Are there any sort of like toothpastes or oral rinses or anything like that that helps to rebalance the oral microbiome, or helps to kind of feed it what it's missing if you're keeping it in there? Is there anything like that? Like, think like a supplement for your mouth effectively. Like, is that a thing?
Unfortunately, I haven't found one in the market that I would completely align in terms of the ingredients. And if I have to say, there's some things that I do align with in terms of ingredients. There's one that is called Gene and Fang, which is was formulated by a friend of mine. It looks great in terms of the formulation because it's as natural as it could be.
Mhm.
Um, but still, that's something that's like a very homemade recipe. Uh,
Mhm.
Beyond that point, what you start getting into is molecules that can have some remineralization potential, or will kill certain microbes, and you have this potentially antimicrobial elements there. But for the feeding process, they put some inulin derived molecules like fructooligosaccharides, etc. But the predictability in terms of that they're going to provide a benefit in your oral microbiota in general, it's very low. Like, there's no real evidence that they will improve diversity levels, because again, it's not that they will grab everything on, like, that is present in the surface right away, it's probably going to get bathed in the saliva that we're using for chewing foods, or even the toothpaste that's skin diluted. Very unlikely you're going to have a predominant source of foods to even or improve your balance on the oral microbiome. You need that process to come from the systemic approach, and then bring it back to your cellular glands, and et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. So last question on this. So oil pulling. So I've only heard good things about oil pulling.
Mhm.
Think like coconut oil, for example, right? Um, but coconut oil is a natural antimicrobial. So am I now that we're hearing this, is it like helping but maybe not helping and hurting in another way? Like, or what's your take on oil pulling in general and its help?
So oil pulling could be a potential tool in a toolbox for a certain amount of time and for certain needs.
Okay.
Yeah, the problem I see here with oil pulling and every other strategy I hear about that could be supernatural in terms of in sense of the ingredients they're using is that we use it as a as a daily thing. So we grab something that could be potentially good for certain scenarios, and we start using it on a daily basis, and we destroy the purpose that originated that type of therapy from in the beginning. So when you get oil pulling is absolutely great if you have some severe imbalance in your mouth and you have some very predominant pathogens and you want to try to counteract a little bit the overgrowth while working in something else in your gut, in your body's systems. But if you use it on a daily basis, you're going to destroy your diversity
Hmm.
and everything that comes along with the effects of lowering diversity in the mouth. So I don't propose using that on a daily basis. Again, it should be something we do for a week or two max, and for a purpose, and guided with a therapy for improving diversity afterwards, meaning adding prebiotics and probiotics from the gut, or improving your diet, or whatever is needed to regain that balance on a systemic level. Otherwise, you're just putting a huge band-aid that can have actually negative consequences on the side.
Yeah. How do you test your mouth? How do you know? Like, I know you could test your gut. There's stool testing. There's different things you can do. How do you test your mouth?
There's some testings out there. I don't vouch for them right now. Just no, I'm not saying they're bad. Don't get me wrong. Um, there's some disconnection in the reports I've seen from a few companies that are pretty famous out there for oral testing, oral microbiome testing, in the recommendation. So I'm concerned that even though the information in terms of the analysis of the microbiome might be accurate enough, I still have my concerns about that either. But let's say for a minute it is, then we have that concern about the recommendations. Most of the companies that are testing the microbiome of the mouth, they're still recommending fluoride and antimicrobials when they see any type of overgrowth, which disaligns with what I believe, that is reflecting something else that is more profound than just a microbe that is throwing the party in the mouth. That doesn't make sense for me. There's no possibility of a pathogen or any microbe to overgrow without the proper settings, and the settings are dictated by your organs, your equilibrium in your at a systemic level. It's larger than just a cavity with a few microbes outstanding in the growth rates. So that's something I will consider. Again, there's a couple of testings out there. I would not like to mention them right now because I, I can't compromise my reputation by recommending something I don't think is valuable enough yet. Although under somebody else's guidance, it's really it can be useful to see the microbiome profile of the mouth, and especially if you're going to align that profile to a gut microbiome analysis. That's where I see the most profound relevance of using those type of testings, when you can align those two areas and connect the dots all together.
That was going to be my next question. So when you do that, do you see consistency in species type, like what it might be, or do you see differences in oral versus gut? And then you just have to understand then gut drives something different in the mouth, or is it like a one to one? Like if I have an overgrowth here in the gut, I'm going to have a similar overgrowth here in the mouth.
What you typically see is that there's a couple of scenarios in that type of analysis. The mouth has certain degree of independency from the gut, so there's no 100% connection. Typically, if your barriers are low, if your fences are low, and that means that your stomach acid production and bile production are not up to speed, a very likely scenario will be that when you swallow microbes, they're not getting killed efficiently on those areas, and you will see a more predominant reflection of oral related microbes in your stool sample analysis. And I've seen that all the time, like bacteria families like Bacillus parisiae or Bacillus or Fuchsiobacteria, unfortunately, too, and Streptococcus CI, etc. All these families that are way more predominant in the mouth space rather than the gut space, you can see them now reflected in the gut in high amounts. That tells me something. Tells me that these guys are crossing barriers and now they can be affecting the balance of the gut microbiome. The other way around will be pro-inflammatory microbes expressed in a higher degree in the oral microbiome testing, which not necessarily are going to be reflected in the profile of the gut microbiome because they might get killed many times while trying to cross those barriers. And I do rely on the information of the gut microbiome to base my understanding of potential issues on the mouth microbiome. But I've been doing this for many years, so I have a certain degree of experience to see this, and I can read between the lines in certain areas. For the mouth microbiome part, the only thing I will say is that if you see a pathogen, don't think about the mouth itself. Think about what is going on at the systemic level that is affecting the mouth microbiome balance. And at the end of the day, you will see the inflammatory signs in the mouth. The mouth is very accessible. So any dentist, especially biological dentist, will look for those inflammatory signs and it will understand something is off. And beyond that, you don't need to just go to the nitty-gritty details of what is driving that imbalance. You know that it's there, and you know that the approach should be again on a systemic level.
So the approach is gut primarily as your starting point, understanding what if there's a dysbiosis, what's predominant, what's not, addressing diet, probiotics, whatever else might be needed in order to balance that out. And then when the gut calms down, the signals it's then sending up and what it's sending through the salivary glands are going to be more a more robust sort of palette of nutrients that would then be present for the mouth, which would then start reversing whatever mouth issues are going on.
Absolutely. So my concern is that the mouth, it's very, again, accessible. So you can see signs of inflammation pretty clearly with just an inspection. A visual inspection is just enough for understanding that part. And so that tells you what's going on. Now, if you go to the microbial analysis level, which I'm not saying is bad, by the way, it's not my opinion, but then you feel very tempted to use certain antimicrobials or antibiotics.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you see the bacteria and they will tell you, hey, because you have this bacteria elevated that causes an inflammation, you can use this antibiotic or this antimicrobial and you can go and kill it, which is an illusion. You're not really going to kill that bacteria alone. You're going to wipe out a vast majority of the diversity. So does it really matter if you have that ability of inspecting visually that area? And that's my concern. That might mislead people towards an approach that I'm not a huge fan of.
Yeah, I mean, it's just take what you said and stick it in the gut. Everyone knows if you're taking antibiotics for a long time, it's bad. Like I mean, anyone who at least is like aware of this world knows that it's bad. So is no different than another place where you have, I mean, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of different, I don't know what the number is of species that are present somewhere and you wipe them all out. Like that's not good either. So, I mean, it lines up and it makes sense. And we have a corollary in the body where it's more of a known understanding that this is bad. Like, you don't want your kids on antibiotics. This is bad. You don't want to be on them for multiple cycles. This is bad. Like we've kind of figured that out. So it makes sense. So tell me, so we've been talking like about the mouth this whole time. Now you shifted and you founded DetoxU, which I'd love to like talk about a little bit and what it is. But like, what kind of started that transition for you? How did you get there? What is it doing? Or, and sort of how is it working off of what you've known historically in your previous life versus what you're doing now? And I guess just kind of maybe start by explaining what is DetoxU so we can kind of get that baseline.
Yep. So DetoxU is a company that was built under the knowledge and understanding of the overwhelming amount of toxins that we are exposed to on a daily basis. Uh, I say this in the titles of my presentations. We're living in the age of toxins. Unfortunately, there has not been a time in history that we had as many toxins as we have today on exposure on that we're getting exposed to on a daily basis, and it doesn't discriminate age groups or gender, anything, even location. I tested hundreds of people, if not more, around the country, across the country, and I found always maybe different types, but there was always a toxicity issue related to the area some people were living at, and that caused me concern, of course, in a profound way because I saw the connection between that and chronic illness occurrence. Um, Now, when I started to improve or help people in their detoxification support journeys, because the organs in the body, they do a fantastic job trying to remove these toxins out. But unfortunately, we have so many right now; they're getting overwhelmed, and there's a need for optimization, which not too many people do in the daily basis, which is supporting your organs' receptors to improve that pathways, improve those pathways. So while I was doing that, I found a very, very big challenge on keeping consistency in following the protocols. Why? Because most of the companies out there, they have really good products. I can't say anything negative about most of the companies out there that are supporting detoxification, but they're way too complex.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard to follow them. There's so many products they put together. You can see bundles of 6, 8, or more that the person has to take on a daily basis to achieve something. And
Mm-hmm.
that comes with a huge price tag on the side. So I was concerned about that. And I had a conversation with Craig, which is one of the other co-founders. And we were working together. And also, he was previously also a patient of mine. And we were having this conversation around toxins. And he gave me his feedback, but so many other people told me the same thing. And we thought we could do better on that part. And we went through a year long of research. I had the help of a few food chemists. Pete was fantastic in this journey with Maleto. And and then Andrew, of course, also was Andrew Abraham was also part of the conversations that we had to bring this company together. And Andrew is a cancer survivor. Andrew, Craig was really prostrated in his couch for years because he couldn't move. He was in such an amount of pain and aches and tiredness from toxicity related issues. And I am a dentist who was exposed to mercury for 12 years. I was breathing those vapors on a daily basis, and I developed an autoimmune condition based on my levels of exposure to mercury. And thank God it was only an autoimmune. To be and that's worth it that. But it wasn't again, thank God. But we all had a little bit of a common history around toxins. So we put together our knowledge and resources, and we created the product line that is now known as DetoxU, which comes with a lot of added benefits. It's simple, it's affordable, it's clinically oriented because it comes with all the foundations of my protocols that I was putting together for years and years and seeing results out of them. So
Mm-hmm.
it's formulated based on evidence and, of course, backed by research. and it's something that people can comply and people can do on a daily basis and get the help they need without the extra burden of following instructions and protocols that are way too complex to follow. And with that, we developed 5 products. 2 are the core products that are called Remover and Binder. Those 2
Mhm.
products are 2 main pillars that are addressing the main detoxification organ needs and binding toxins out of the body efficiently. So those 2 pillars are pretty much covering everything under the sky in terms of toxicity issues. But we have 3 focus products that are that you can add to that main bundle to make it more intentional, more specific when you know your toxic burden or you know your sensitivities, and you want to take this one step further into the support process. And so we have a product called Heavy Metal Focus. We have another product called Industrial Focus, and we have a product called Mold Focus. So depending on the type of toxicity you're exposed to, more predominantly, you have a certain specific support you can add to your general detox bundle.
Very cool. So, couple questions on these. So, remover is more about opening detox pathways, so like methylation and things like that. Is that sort of what the idea of remover is?
Yes. So Remover was formulated with the understanding of the main needs for proper detoxification support. Your body has a beautiful connection. Everyone's body has a beautiful connection with natural elements.
Mhm.
I don't. Sometimes it uh, amazes me that people are not mind boggled so much about the fact that that we use something that comes from a plant and has activity in a certain receptor in your cells that will upregulate a pathway. That's how deeply connected we are with nature. And people are used to drink herbal teas or use certain ointments, and they accept that as something common, and they don't really connect the dots and how amazing that you get something that is completely natural coming from an external source of your body, and your body is by default physiologically connected to that input. And so you use things like dandelion and you upregulate 127% more bile flow or support your kidney function also tremendously. So what we did is put together botanicals that they were working on phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 on the hepatocyte detoxification pathways.
Yep.
Then we put together a few other ingredients that are working on mitochondrial performance, because you can get nothing done if your mitochondria are not up to speed.
Yep.
And so we got things like alpha lipoic acid and PQQ and phosphatidylcholine that they have, of course, they have overlapping benefits between detoxification, cell performance, etc. And then we have things that a bundle of botanicals that they work directly on the kidney function and lymphatic drainage. So we cover all the bases from the perspective of how a toxin will be excreted into the circulation and brought into the liver system and excreted out of your body efficiently without losing any step of the process. And we ended up with this proprietary blend with optimized potency for covering all the steps of the process seamlessly without any interruptions.
So, remover is effectively releasing stored toxins and getting them to move again, and then binders and grabbing them so they
Yes.
can be, so they don't become systemic movers, right? Because you don't want to just mobilize it and leave it there, right?
Yeah. The risk factor is that you can always recycle those toxins from the
Yep.
secondary bioacid activity. So you want these minerals. They're demonized. I heard so many people now talking negatively about them. They are naturally occurring on soil. We used to get them with every meal that we had
Yeah.
hundreds of years ago. The thing is that we claim too much the foods right now, and I understand there's a purpose for that. But they were the agents that they were keeping us protected for so many
Mhm.
years. Now, these guys, yes, they enlarge molecules. They make them so large that they can't escape the primary route of elimination. But also, in the same process, we need to keep up with the integrity of the gut line. And in the binder, we added something that's pretty novel. We added shilajit and aloe. And so shilajit with the fulvic acid that you find naturally occurring there, and also with the aloe activity and the beautiful
Ooh,
fibers you have there, you have this direct implication and the benefit on the healing process and the tight junction healing process as well of the gut lining. So you prevent recirculation at that level. And we added one more caveat, which I love this part. We added molybdenum. I was finding the reason why people were so aggravated by sulfur and cysteine, and remover has reduced glutathione, and the industrial focus has NAC. So I didn't want to get these negative reactions from people telling me, "Oh, I'm getting these sulfur molecules and I'm flare up." And I found that 9 out of 10 times it's a deficiency in the cofactor, meaning molybdenum. So you add molybdenum to the formula, and you can improve tolerance for cysteine-derived molecules by a lot. And so improving sulfur tolerance and everything else that comes along with.
yeah. And just so everyone knows, like their website has every single one of these ingredients in here, and you can click on them and look at them, and it tells you what it does and stuff. So if you're not, frantically writing all these things down while you're driving, please don't do that. You could go to DetoxU or DetoxU.com, and when you go into like the different products and bundles and stuff, you can get into the different ingredients that are in there. So the binder, I'm looking at the ingredients. So there seems to be multi binder types in here. So like a broad spectrum binder between charcoal, zeolite, clay. Um, so just like if you want to maybe chat on that a little bit, because I know that there are certain binders that are very focused to certain toxins, and then there's the approach of doing more of like a universal broad spectrum binder.
Yes.
Yeah, this looks to lean more towards the second, where you have multiple binder types that are in there.
Yeah, you want to be as comprehensive as possible. Well, the reason is because we get a little bit confused when somebody tells us, "Oh, you have mold toxins," and then we go all in with the mold toxins and nothing else, and we believe that's the only thing that we should be addressing, and that can make people maybe become a little bit more at risk, because they're also pushing other types of toxins that maybe the practitioner didn't measure, or they were not aware of, that they didn't get reflected in the initial testing, which is something very common, by the way, because sometimes the things are held inside the body because the body doesn't have enough resources to push everything out. And then you start focusing on one type of toxin and then one type of binder. And the
Right.
reality is that you might be pushing way more things out of your biliary tree, and you might lose the chance of capturing those molecules as well.
I
And
mean, I'll
so,
say this. I see. Oh, sorry. I was just going
oh,
to add to that. I see a bunch of mycotox profiles come in from clients all the time, and it's usually not just mold toxins. Like that's a piece of it, right? But if you really start looking at it, there's also heavy metals, there's also chemicals, there's also other things that show up in the profile. Um, and so, being able to address multi things, at the same time, a lot of times mold gets prioritized higher than others. I've kind of seen that consistency, from doctor recommendations where like, yeah, there's these things, but like the mold thing is sort of the primary driver that they run at. And then they get like a secondary benefit because they'll be helping to address the others like at the same time, but they kind of run at it mold focused first, knowing that that will downstream and affect some of the other ones. But it seems like the opinion is that the mold stuff is more of the priority to run at,
yeah,
as opposed to the others.
I agree. Well, there's a reason why, and actually, I don't disagree with that hierarchy level.
Mhm.
Biotoxins in general are very complex. They go everywhere. They have this. Their mold toxins are ionophores, so they have this dual electric charge that they can allows them to cross barriers. Uh,
Mhm.
the electroaffinity of a molecule, many cases, prevents the molecule to go everywhere. But mold toxins, they do have that dual activity, which allows them to go pretty much everywhere in the body. And so having those different types of minerals with different types of electroaffinity and capturing positively charged and negatively charged molecules at the same time gives you way more resources to prevent these toxins to create issues. And so instead of choosing and picking based on a report, which I believe is useful to a certain extent, don't get me wrong, I love testing. I think it's a great idea to establish a baseline and keep a track on the reduction patterns of the toxicity levels. That gives you also understanding of how much you're getting exposed to, how efficient is your protocol, and when to stop. Because you don't want to do this forever. You want to do it maybe on and off, but never continuously for a long time. Uh,
Mhm.
my ideal time frame is usually 6 months, and the reason is because you do a very important flush in the first 2 months, 2 or 3 months, but then you need to keep going a little bit more to allow the repairing phase to hit
Mhm.
the healing part. With all these toxins circulating, you're not going to be able to repair tissues. You want to also give that support to your organs in order to heal. And that's when the extra mile takes place. And that's why I extend the protocols to 6 months. And I believe that's your sweet spot. But then I want to stop. And I'm gonna give a pause to the body and let it reset. And then you come
Mhm.
back again. Remember, you're working with receptors in the body. Receptors are sensitive. And we are now in this mindset of more potency is better. And everyone's looking for these huge potent supplements with turmeric and other things. And we're not understanding that we're stimulating receptors that are very sensitive to the input. And if they see too much of something, instead of upregulating to a higher level, what they're going to do is they're going to go down and
Yeah.
shut down, and you get nothing out of those. Uh,
Yeah.
so be mindful that all the traditional medicine approach and Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine was a little at a time, consistently over a certain amount of time. They will never rushing the optimization of the process. I think that's a risky place to be. And unfortunately, I've seen that trend in the industry I don't align with. And we need to respect and be mindful about our biology and how it works. It will not respond above supraphysiological levels. It won't.
Mhm.
It will do the opposite. But with that in mind, that flexibility in the binders, it's great for peace of mind of whatever could be recirculating, and keeping also the support on the gut lining helps preventing these flare-ups on the immune side, which is super common when you're pushing more toxins more intentionally. And so the side effects of the detoxification support protocol becomes less. I honestly, we have already 4 month, 3, 4 month in the market, and we have hundreds of people already using our products. And the reports of negative side effects are minimal, are really like rare. And
Mhm.
I'm not making any promises I can keep, but it's very gratifying to see that the potency we were trying to aim for is paying off in terms of seeing results and benefits, and not seeing side effects on.
Right. Things like Herc's reactions and detoxing too quickly and the body then reacting because you're mobilizing too much and the body's not ready for it. Yeah, that's like a really common thing where then the doctor has to go dial it back because they went too hard. They're like, oh no, this person can't handle this. We got to dial this back a little bit. So
Yeah,
yeah, well, that's great. Well, this was really cool. This was a really awesome conversation.
thank you.
And I think what you guys are doing are really cool. Is there any like final thoughts that you have that you want to share?
Yeah, I always say this for people who are listening and listening the word detoxification, and they get scared that, oh, this is going to feel terrible and I'm going to suffer. Detoxification is happening in your body. And if you are able to support the process and optimize it, it's just going to be better for you and your physiology and your health concerns. There's a process of optimization that, if it's done comprehensively, it will feel good, not the opposite. So that scary feeling about detoxification support is something we are trying to reverse. It is not something that should put you in any risk. It shouldn't put you in any complicated situation within your lifestyle or your daily life. It should just give you a better chance to cope with what is affecting you at the core of your biology, which are all these toxins that unfortunately are too damaging, and they're unavoidable for most of them. Probably we can avoid 15% of them, but it's the most amount of toxins we're getting on a daily basis that come from the air, the water, and the food we eat. And even if we eat organic, the soil is contaminated, and
Mhm.
and and, and we're not intentionally putting toxins there, but the source of your food still is not pristine. So you're going to get them one way or the other. So it's better to just give your body a fighting chance to cope with them better.
Absolutely. I mean, we're in a time where like our bodies, like you said, they're meant to detox, are supposed to do this. We're just overloading it too fast and it can only do so much. So it's more about support as opposed to like doing something different that it's not supposed to do. It's just it's a little behind now. It needs like a little boost to catch up. And so these types of things help give our bodies what they need, which is just a little support. So well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat. Everyone, go check out detoxu.com. That's where these bundles live. There's information on them. You can see all the products that are listed in every single one. They have pop-ups to tell you what they're supposed to do and why they're in there and all of that stuff. So, it's not hiding the proprietary blend. I mean, the blend it's hiding, I suppose, but it's not hiding the ingredients that are in there or anything like that. So it's very transparent, which is cool as well. So, all right, well, thank you. All
Thank you.
right, bye bye.
Bye.